Hello, this is Regina DNP, and we want to speak today on immunity. Expect the unexpected. And I want to welcome you to our Wellness Wednesday topic. So, last week we spoke on perspectives, and this week we're going to touch upon anxiety and depression and how expectations can cause anxiety and depression. So, with anxiety, you want to look at disorders that share features of excessive fear and anxiety and related behavioral disturbances. So, when you talk about anxiety, we must touch upon fear. Fear is an emotional response to real or perceived imminent threats. So, there may not be a visible threat, but there is the perception of an imminent threat. And when we speak upon anxiety, anxiety is an anticipation of a future threat. So fear will cause an autonomic response. So that's where we get our fight or flight response. And so you'll feel anxious. Sometimes the muscles will tense up. But you can also have avoidance behavior. Now, with depression, depression can be sad or empty feelings, or you can have an irritable mood. And with this particular one, there's usually changes that we see. So we ask about things like sleep. We ask about your desire to do things, aka anhedonia. We ask about your concentration, your eating habits. How well are you sleeping? And with depression, the actual diagnosis will depend upon the duration, the timing, and the cause of the depression. Is it cyclical? Is it seasonal? Have you gone through grief or loss? So, there are many reasons and many ways that we actually diagnose depression. So, moving on to our next slide. So, last week we spoke on perspectives. And let's just do a recap of our 10 things to keep in mind when we look at the perspective. You need to practice gratitude, embrace challenges, cultivate mindfulness, seek different perspectives. And of course, we always want to have control over situations, but in all actuality, we have no control over anything. We want to focus on solutions, practice self compassion, limit negative inputs, set realistic expectations, and we want to learn from our failures. Sorry about that. Slide. So last week we spoke on perspectives. And let's just do a recap of our 10 things to keep in mind when we look at the perspective. You need to practice gratitude, embrace challenges, cultivate mindfulness, seek different perspectives. So, on to our next slide. So, expectations. When we have unrealistic expectations, this is where problems actually occur. So, when we talk about anxiety and depression, we have to look at okay, what was our expectation of the situation? Because if you believe that you are immune to issues, problems, bumps in the road, your expectation is not realistic. And that's going to set you up for anxiety and depression. So you'll see that sometimes we set unrealistic standards. So we need to be realistic with ourselves. Is the goal realistic? Because if it's not, you're going to put yourself in constant pressure to meet an unattainable goal. So when this happens, of course, there will be a sense of failure and disappointment, which of course can lead to anxious thoughts or depressive thoughts. So set realistic expectations. What are you using as a gauge to set these standards? Sometimes fear of disappointment. Fear can actually stop you in your track. Fear can prevent you from actually starting or initiating something. So we really need to put things into perspective so that we can have the correct expectation. So a fear of disappointment, you fear not meeting that standard. Now, it could be something that you put upon yourself, or it could be an expectation someone else has put upon you. Our next thing to be careful of is control. So when we have a loss of control, things don't go as planned. And of course, anxiety and depression can set in because we feel helpless, because we can't control anything. And the truth of the matter is, sure, there are some things that we can control, but when you really look at the grand scheme of things, we really don't have control over anything. We can make plans, but we really don't control anything. So, the next thing that can set us up for failure is when we compare ourselves to others. We are unique beings. Each one of us have a goal. Each one of us have a plan. Each one of us have a purpose. So, we have to run our race in our lane. It's when we start looking at other people and we want to run their race, but you have to ask yourself, am I equipped? So if you're ill equipped and you're trying to run someone else's race, you are setting yourself up for failure, which will lead to anxious and depressive thoughts. So we have to be very careful when we compare ourselves to others. I remember my pastor from years ago in Texas. I used to say, I want a BMW. And she would always tell me, daughter, make sure when you get a BMW that you're able to maintain it, you're able to make the notes, because we can want things all we want, but in all actuality, we have to make sure that we are prepared for whatever it is we plan on getting, because it's a sad day. You purchase a car and you can't put tires on it. If something happens, you don't have the money to repair it. So you always want to go before, and look at the goal. Look at what it is that you would like. And then you have to make plans for it. But even in our planning, things may not go as we planned. So therefore, we have to make sure we have realistic expectations. Now, perfectionism. No one is perfect. All of us are prone to make mistakes. And to be honest, what's perfect for one person may not be perfect for another. So, once again, unrealistic standards and having realistic expectations. So, you got to ask yourself, is perfection truly attainable? Sure, some people can get perfect SAT scores, sure. Mathematically, there are some things that can be perfect. But anytime you put a human being in the mix, it's all about perspective. So, another thing that sets us up for failure, which can lead to anxious and depressive thoughts, is lack of flexibility. Are you flexible? Because I'm going to tell you, in this life, you're going to have to be flexible. You're going to have to be able to adjust. Those people who cannot adjust can break. So think about a ruler. I remember in school, some people had these rubber like rulers, and some people had wood rulers. So when you think about that wood ruler, not very flexible, had some flexibility, but you couldn't bend it to 90 degrees. Bend it to 90 degrees, it would break. Now, that rubber ruler, you could twist it, bend it. You could do all kinds of things and shapes with a rubber ruler. And so I always tell people be flexible like a Twizzler. You can bend it, you can stretch it, you can shape it, you can do all kinds of things. So, flexibility is very important. So, when you become so rigid that you can't adapt, that will lead to anxious and depressive thoughts. Now, let's talk about negative self talk. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. What are you saying about yourself? What do you believe about yourself? Because death and life are in the power of the tongue. So if you continue to speak negatively, you're going to attract negative things. Remember last week when we spoke about perspectives? I told you that good things happen to good people, good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people. So don't expect life to be, oh, it's just roses and my poop don't stink. No, that's not true. We have to be honest and we have to be realistic. So, bumps in the roads will come, but your preparation for them, that and how you, what is your perception of it? What are you going to do? Is going to make a huge difference. And then dependency on external validation. Now, of course, all of us want to be given accolades and told that we're doing a good job. We all do. Some people say, I don't need that. That's not true. We all want to be validated. But when you become dependent on that validation, some people are just not for you. And some people want to see you down. Have you heard the cliche, hurt people hurt people? They really do. And you have to be careful on whom you are seeking your validation from, because sometimes people don't have good intentions towards us. So we need to be mindful of who's giving us our validation. Can you stand the fire? Can you be in the fire and stand for what's right when everyone around you is not doing right? So you have to really and truly make sure that whomever you're seeking validation from, that they truly love you and that they really will correct you when wrong and they want to see you succeed. So, another issue that can lead to anxious and depressive thoughts is constant worry. If your mind is always preoccupied with what could be or what has already happened in the past, you will become stagnant. You will not move forward. You will not press towards greater things if you're stuck. So it's very important. You don't want to ruminate, meaning you have a thought that constantly goes through your mind. You keep thinking about it, keep thinking about it, keep thinking about it. Before you know it, an hour will have passed. You keep on ruminating on that thought, a whole day will pass. Keep on ruminating on that thought, months and years will pass, and you are still stuck on this one thought. And I'll tell you, if that thought is about another person, chances are that other person has moved on, but you're stuck. So it's very important that you do not constantly worry. And finally, our 10th point, interpersonal conflicts. So, unmet expectations in relationships can lead to conflicts, strained connections, and of course, this can lead to depressive and anxious thoughts. You want to make sure that the person you are in a relationship with, that they truly have your best interest at heart, that they speak life into you, that they don't tear you down. I'm telling you from experience. If a person tears you down, tries to make you feel bad, tries to isolate you from family and friends, that person is not for you. And it's all about how we feel about ourselves and if we truly believe that we deserve better. So you really need to be mindful on who you are in relationship with. Because if that person is not helping you, they're harming you. And you really need to be truthful with the person you're in a relationship with, because you may think you're trying to spare that person's feelings, but if you keep a person in a relationship and you're not really in it, you're harming that person. So it would be better to make amends and go your separate ways versus causing harm to a person. It just doesn't, it's not going to work out for you. Okay. And so finally, I want to encourage anyone who is having suicidal thoughts. There's a 24/7 crisis line for the United States of America. You can dial 988. Of course, you can call your family or friends, but if they're not available, dial 988. If it's emergent, please call 911. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Association, there is a hotline number for them. I'll find it and I'll post it. And I want you to always remember your health is your wealth. So I am so happy and I'm honored that you have listened to our Wellness Wednesday for the day. We do accept most major insurances for our mental health assessments. You can call us at 310-844-3440, or you can go to the website www.pcnursingca.com. And this is Regina DMP signing off for Wellness Wednesday. Have a wonderful day.